So, Molly and James, so happy to have you here today. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Allie. We're very happy to be here. I think I'm just going to share my screen. Can everyone see? Let's get you back on my screen. Okay, I see some nodding. Okay, wonderful. So, Allie, I know you just introduced us. I want to echo we're so happy to be here. With over the last few years, really leaned into the beauty of libraries and how much crossover there is between your work and our work in the Aging Services Network and for older adults in the community. And we our respective lanes work so much better when we work together. So really happy to be here and to continue learning about what you all do. Um, so without further ado, some of you might already be aware of the Executive Office of Aging and Independence, so I don't want to spend too long giving you an overview. We're going to get into the really interesting stuff in just a few minutes, but for those that aren't aware, wanted to give sort of a lay of the land. So the Executive Office of Aging and Independence, that might be a new term for you. We actually rebranded recently. I went on maternity leave last year. I left Executive Office of Elder Affairs and I came back to a new agency, new name, new signature, everything. So you might know Elder Affairs, EOEA. That was our previous title, but we found that this better aligned with our mission and our values in supporting older adults in the community, supporting their independence as libraries do as well. So that's sort of, if you haven't heard the term, we go by age. So if you hear age, that's us. And really the mission behind what we do is helping older adults remain in the community, maintain their independence, their autonomy, stay connected to what they find value and meaning in, and helping the caregivers that support them as well. So everything that we do is sort of for that mission. It's the community-based setting. Then councils on aging. This is probably the aspect of the Aging Services Network that perhaps you're most familiar with. COAs, councils on aging, senior centers all mean the same thing. We use the term, or we use the expression, if you know one COA, you know one COA. And I think that's true of libraries as well. They're really rooted in community needs. So there are large cities in Massachusetts that have very large COAs. They have tons of staff. They have directors and outreach managers and marketing and all kinds of things. And there are some that are, 1 to 2 staff members. Perhaps they're co-located at the library. So it's really based on what the community looks like, what the community needs. But there are range of sizes and services, but there are 350 of them. So every community is served by a COA in Massachusetts. And then in terms of what the COAs do, it looks a little bit different based on what the COAs, but this is a list of some of the things you might find at the COA. So a lot of them do provide transportation to older adults to the COA, to other locations, sometimes the library. They provide outreach. A lot of them provide meals, screenings. Really, I would say virtually all of them provide some level of socialization. So you go to the COA, you meet other folks in your community. Maybe you're part of a support group or a Zumba class or lifelong learning, whatever that looks like. They provide really great services, just like libraries. Now switching gears to Aging Services Access Points. You might have heard of ASAPs. There are 24 of these. So in the same way that every community in Massachusetts is served by a COA or senior center, every community is also served by an ASAP, but it's less ASAPs covering larger geographic areas. And they are regional aging focused nonprofits providing things like home care, nutrition, options counseling, family caregiver support, things that are uniform across the state. So when I said the COAs, each one was a little bit different. The ASAPs maybe have some variation, but for the most part, everything is available. Everything on the screen is available throughout the state. So I'll go into some of, James and I looked at the list and said, what would be most useful or actionable for library staff to know? What, you encounter an older adult, what would be important for you to know in your work that exists in the community, that you could refer out to, partner with. And these were some of the things. So pertaining to health and healthcare, there's the home care program. So this is very widespread. It provides help to over 60,000 older adults, helps them remain in their home for longer. And a lot of times, 22,000, it's a large percentage of these are folks that otherwise would have been in institutional level care. So you might think, maybe you come across an older adult or a caregiver. This is someone that really has high care needs. In other states, it might be that the person would have to live in a nursing home. And in Massachusetts, there's a big emphasis on if the person wants to stay at home, they can. And we have these services for them. Same with the senior nutrition program, serving 10 million meals every year. So this exists for folks that are living at home without that, level of need that we saw sometimes with the home care. And they also, they will provide on-site and home delivered meals, which is really great. And so these two programs, home care and nutrition, those are available statewide. BHOPE is the last one on the screen. It's behavioral health outreach for aging populations. You might have heard the term MHAP before. This was also rebranded recently. Basically, these are behavioral health services. It's a specific program that is not available statewide. It's available in, I would say, a third of the state, but just because it isn't statewide, there are still behavioral health supports throughout the state provided by the ASAP. So basically the theme of this slide is trying to support older adults, trying to support caregivers before they're in crisis, so that they're able to continue living in the community and the where they have lived and where they're comfortable. So trying to avoid that crisis before it happens. Economic stability, where there's the SHINE program serving the health insurance needs of everyone. So this is really information, counseling assistance for those who are eligible for Medicare and then their caregivers. And this is great. There are SHINE counselors at every ASAP. And then neighborhood and physical environment. So, I'm providing a lay of the land. These aren't my programs. I will say I am rooted in two areas, caregiving and digital equity. So I'll provide sort of a rough overview of these, but definitely there's more information available. But, there's supportive housing. So this is where older adults can live in a housing setting that has services that supports them even if they have a certain level of need. There's congregate housing where folks have their own bedroom, but they share things like the kitchen or the dining or bathroom areas. And then assisted living certification. That's sort of the one way that the agency dips its toe into like institutional settings, but it's really just the certification of ALRs. But those are, if not providing medical or nursing services. So what's important for you to know? I think it's just that these sorts of settings and services exist. Where do we find them? At the ASAP or the COA. You're not, though, supposed to be an expert in these in the same way that I certainly am not, which is why we have things like options counseling. So an older adult, a caregiver can call the ASAP or call Mass Options, which I'll talk about in a moment. And this person is an expert in all of the options that exist in Massachusetts for where to live, what services exist. And they're going to walk you through what what the older adult's options are or the caregiver's options. So that's really a great resource to point folks to. There's also the Family Caregiver Support Program. This is the program, one of the programs that I oversee. Basically, a caregiver who either is an older adult themselves or they're caring for an older adult. So as long as one of them is meets that threshold, then they're eligible. It's a free program. Caregiver meets with the caregiver specialists and really gets personalized support, an action plan. They might get a stipend, they might get respite, really depends on the caregiver's needs, but it's always, support groups, education, training, things like that. And then we have a monthly Caring for the Caregiver webinar series. This is an easy thing to point folks to if you come across a caregiver. Hey, there's this monthly webinar series. It's a different topic every month based on what we're hearing from caregivers, what they want to know about in their caregiving experience. At this point, it's been going on since 2021. We have between 20 and 30 webinars backlogged, all on YouTube. I can put the link in the chat. And then the last thing I want to talk about, and then I'll turn it over to James for the really fun part of this, is mass options. So if you don't know mass options, I would say this is, there are a few things that we want you to walk away with. This is one of them. Mass options, it's really our front door. So there's an older adult that you come across, there's a caregiver, they don't know where their local ASAP is. They don't know what the COA is. They don't know even where to start. Mass options is that starting point. And so they can call mass options or they can go to the website and email, they can chat. And basically the person on the other end of the phone or the email is going to say, no problem, here are your options, here's the phone number to call, it's going to be okay. And that's it. So they don't need to know, the phone number for their local agency, they just need to know mass options. So I'm going to turn it over to James, who's going to talk more about sort of the fun stuff about areas for partnership and collaboration and all of that fun stuff. So James, take it away.
Thanks very much, Molly. So here we go. This is the fun part.
No pressure.
No pressure. No pressure felt on this end at all. So again, like Molly said, it's great to be here. I'm James Fuccione from the Mass Healthy Aging Collaborative. Apologies and disclaimer for how I sound. I'm just working through a cold, so if I go on mute for a second or two, it's just for the public good. So sorry about that in advance. But we are a constant collaborator with the Executive Office of Aging and Independence. Unfortunately for Molly, she's one of the ones that works with me the most. But you have a great agency in MBLC, and there was a lot of great collaboration between libraries and aging services, COAs, and ASAPs before, and that's continued with the folks at MBLC, and we've been able to point to so many different practices and programs, and looking to continue those. So our organization is grant funded by Point 32 Health Foundation, and if you don't know what that is, it is the combo of Harvard Pilgrim and Tufts healthcare plans. Their two foundations aligned to create the Point 32 Health Foundation, and one of their main kind of grant-making areas is healthy aging, and they kickstarted the Healthy Aging Collaborative to support age and dementia-friendly communities, and I'll talk about what that is with the next slide. And you gotta keep clicking because there's a weird animation thing in this. Sorry about that. So you've seen mission and visions before. They're lofty and brief and leave you wondering and wanting more. So we put the goals on here as well, just so folks could see what this actually means when we say our vision is that every community in the state is a great place to grow up and grow older. We provide all kinds of support, whatever communities need to become age and dementia friendly. That is a community informed, community led initiative and plan. And it takes listening to people to figure out what being age and dementia friendly means to different people in different places. So we provide data, technical assistance, resources, connection to funding opportunities, and we provide connections between communities that are doing similar work so that folks can learn how to advance all of this stuff, whether it's policy, whether it's social or physical environment programs, practices, and improvements that support healthy aging, and advancing equity in aging, recognizing that we are all aging, and as one of the biggest tents you could possibly put up for a topic, there's a lot that goes on and a lot that people identify with and what is healthy aging, but we try to capture as much as we can to support communities. Next slide, please. So just to zoom out a little bit, you heard a ton from what the Executive Office of Aging Independence does, and this is why their work and our work and the work that you do is becoming more important. The older adult population is continuing to grow. You can see the jump between 2020 and 2030. But although the baby boomer population is sort of the focus now, this trend isn't really going to decrease or go down any, because generations coming, following baby boomers are just as large as a generational kind of size. So that the spike is really going to plateau. And what we're going to see is there's a need to align policy and programs with the fact that people are living longer and that there is an aging population, and what does that mean for all kinds of different things, for the way we work, the way we kind of support social determinants of health, broadly speaking. Next slide, please. And so another view of this, which is always mind-blowing just to show as a stat, but you can see the crossover in that, just a few years ago, there's more people in Massachusetts over the age of 60 than under the age of 20. And if you're in the Berkshires, if you're on Cape Cod, parts of Essex County, that probably happened before this. This is a statewide snapshot, but locally, this happened in a lot of places in Massachusetts already. But this is just another way of kind of getting folks to think about what do all these things mean when we're talking about an aging population. How do we align all the support that we provide, and what could we provide more of? Next slide, please, Molly. And so this is yet another view. This is a city and town view. I know it's incredibly small, and I apologize, but this is actually on our website if folks want to take a look at our Healthy Aging Data Report. But on the left-hand side, you see the darker shades of blue, where cities and towns had a higher proportion of residents age 60 and older. And then you flip it to 2030, the projection. You can see plenty of communities, like I said, in Berkshires, Central Mass, Cape Cod, and the North Shore are a little bit darker shaded blue. There's an anomaly out there. You can see a big white spot in kind of the Pioneer Valley. That's Amherst. That should not be like that. That's just a couple colleges get in the way of demographic stats, but they kind of share the same characteristics with the surrounding communities. But just another snapshot that you can look at. And then yet one more, when we talk about equity in aging, the fact that people of color are representing a growing share of the older Massachusetts population. This is going to continue on. This trend is going to continue on, especially in Greater Boston, but across the state and in every region of the state. And also what we don't show here is people living with disability is also another kind of increase in the aging population is the proportion of people living with disability as they are living longer as well. Next slide, please. And so just sort of the headlines of all of this, you saw the demographic stats, so I'm not going to recount those, but the fact that older adults are active community members, they're active as caregivers, supporting families, continuing to work. We have more older adults working than ever before, since we started keeping track of such things in our country and in the state. And so the economic, the health and social contributions of older adults is also something that is going to propel us forward in this movement. Go ahead, Molly. I know you're trying to move me along. I got a lot. I know, I get it. I'm getting the hook already from Molly. But this is just the framework that we follow. There's many different views of this, whether you're talking about the AARP age-friendly model or the dementia-friendly communities model. We've kind of smushed it all together to show what these frequent flyer topics are when we're talking about what does age and dementia-friendly mean or look like in a community. It talks about housing and transportation and equity and inclusion and, information, technology, access to all of these different things. And so communities don't do all of these things. This is meant to be a guide that say communities can sort of prioritize different items based off of feedback and listening to what resonates with folks on a local level. Next slide, please. And so this is just where the current state of affairs is with age and dementia-friendly communities. You can see this variety pack of logos of different regional organizations that we work with. I saw some folks in the chat from, Greenfield, Heath, and Franklin County. So LifePath, you might know, is the organization that's working with FRCOG, Franklin Regional Council of Governments, to lead a regional age and dementia-friendly initiative, so that any town can benefit. Doesn't matter if you're a smaller or larger community, but all of these groups that you see are kind of trying to convene different partners across communities and across sectors to promote healthy aging. We have about 134 age-friendly communities. The dementia-friendly side of this work is led by Massachusetts Councils on Aging Association. So you can commit to, you can pledge, I can't talk. You could sign a pledge that goes to the Mass Councils on Aging, and they approve that to kind of signal your commitment to be a dementia-friendly community. And then we are one of a handful of states, as the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, that has a statewide age and dementia-friendly plan called Reimagine Aging 2030, with MA in the middle capitalized, because we're Massachusetts, and that seemed like a nice branding thing while I'm always talking about all the branding stuff going on. Next slide, please. And just a quick context, we were one of the first states to join the AARP network of age-friendly states and communities. We were lucky enough that our former governor, Charlie Baker, turned 60, had sort of an epiphany, and wanted to do something more than the state was already doing to support healthy aging. And so we had this movement already lined up. And so that started off sort of a council that Governor Baker convened to create the first plan. And then recently we revamped that plan with you can see a multi-sector plan on aging is what some states call it. But we did a statewide listening tour with the Executive Office of Aging and Independence and many other local partners to create the current plan. Next slide, please. And so this is how the state plan categorized all the feedback and broke everything up. So you can see the 6 categories and themes here. So each of these is an overarching strategy with a bunch of sub categories and actions. And this is all available on that website that Molly just shared, and she's, as usual, way ahead of me. So you can click on that and see that libraries are actually mentioned plenty of times as partners in that plan. I think we might have even done some listening sessions with libraries. Some rising challenges that we heard in the statewide tour of listening sessions was digital access. That's one we expected, and then caregiving rose to the top. But one we didn't expect rather, was environment and climate resilience. So the Executive Office of Aging and Independence has created some resources already about heat emergency and how to support older adults through heat, with something we could probably use right now, but plenty of resources being created all the time to kind of help older adults adapt to a changing climate and help people respond well to when natural disasters happen, and so that everybody's included in that kind of policy and that kind of program thinking. Next slide, please. So I always forget that this was tacked on, but the other exciting thing that happened as part of the release and announcement of the new statewide plan was an executive order by Governor Healy to kind of institute an aging lens on what all executive agencies are doing. And so what that basically means is all state agencies have to kind of think about what does being age-friendly and dementia-friendly mean to those agencies. And so across housing and economic development and conservation, recreation, all the executive agencies, they're all kind of putting an aging lens on what they're doing, and we're going to have some great work coming out of that will better include older adults across the spectrum of what state government does. So we're excited about that work to continue as well. Oh, and Molly again with the executive order in the chat. This is just the language of the executive order, so it's a policy review. It's about communications review, how we talk about press announcements in addition to policy, but just how we're talking about all kinds of different issues. And just a quick example on housing. There was recently a commission that wrapped up its work on senior housing recommendations. But while that was happening, we tried to have this be a glass half full moment, that the Boston Globe came out with a couple articles on how older adults are basically, clogging housing supply by having the audacity to live longer and to not have options to downsize or move into. But we talked about that as an opportunity to reframe the issue and talk about how people of all ages need housing options. As we age, our needs change, and so that was one opportunity to kind of highlight that reframing aging work and that language that we encourage everybody to use when talking about aging and older adults. Next slide, please. And just so you know, I know the link's in the chat anyway, but just kind of a visual representation of, you can go to our website and click on data report. You can see that top bar circled in red, and then you have a highlights report, an infographic, which I think is on the next slide. Yes, so this is our infographic. This is our sort of introduction to just the highlights in the statewide report about the fact that 24% of the state population is age 60 and older, that 28% of older adults live alone, and different stats like that hopefully get people to think about the aging lens on their work and how they can, how folks can contribute to supporting people of all ages. Next slide, please. And so, for the purposes of your very community-based libraries, in most cases, there are community profiles on this website. So if you click on the community profiles link, you'll have a drop-down menu with all 351 cities and towns and the neighborhoods of the three biggest cities in the state, Boston, Worcester, and Springfield, and you'll get a snapshot with about 160, 170 data categories, and you see those on the right-hand side of this. So this is publicly available for you to use in advocacy, apply for grants, and to, being an excuse to reach out to anybody to partner around how to serve and support your population. Oh, and thank you, Molly, for the link in the chat. And so this can be a basis to start a conversation locally or regionally about the role of libraries and the role of aging services and supports, and how we can work together and how we can create more community cohesion, more intergenerational opportunity with schools and higher education, including folks in housing authorities and place-based services at housing authorities. Tech and digital access and digital navigation is probably the biggest frequent flyer topic. We've gotten some great partnerships and practices going with libraries that libraries have, quite honestly, led a lot of them, and the COAs, the Councils on Aging, have been supporting partners, community nonprofits. There are plenty of folks around that are, working on overlapping issues and topics, especially these days. Just kind of, just trying to keep different services and supports and activities and all kinds of things together to help people stay connected to public benefits, to help people be more socially engaged, and to I saw somebody's on the task force for loneliness and isolation. Like, that's something that we know libraries and councils on aging work on in different shapes and sizes all the time. So there's plenty of opportunity for tie-in and for resource sharing and for partnerships. Next slide, please. So just one of of many examples, the Chelmsford Public Library got an AARP Community Challenge grant. That's a grant opportunity that's actually open right now. It's an annual opportunity. It does close on March 4th, but we can talk about that in a little bit. But just what one library did, the Chelmsford Public Library set out to recognize Indigenous peoples' contributions throughout local history, and so they installed information kiosks, those kind of little free libraries you can see, and I'm sure many of you run throughout your communities, but with all kinds of educational programs as well to focus on art and inclusive art and history. So just one of many ways that a community stepped up to do something a little bit different. Next slide, please. And Molly, if you want to jump in here with anything too, but in terms of partnership benefits and outcomes, this is probably not news to anybody that any of these things are ideas and things that we've seen throughout communities, but I've already said and talked about intergenerational collaboration and community building, just breaking down ageist perceptions, reducing social isolation, as that is definitely not limited to the older adult population. That is a cross-generational issue that we should all be focused on in some way, shape, or form. Greater senior center visibility. I know some libraries are co-located with the Council on Aging, and that might just be a person in a community without a building, and in some cases the library is sort of a de facto or kind of occasional Council on Aging, but there's all kinds of community education and awareness and programming that goes on from COAs and from libraries, kind of staff visiting each other and talking to different audiences. But Molly, is there anything else that I'm missing in the slide?
No, I mean, I think that we all have the same mission, which is we want to serve the community. We want folks to feel welcome, to be aware of resources before they're really in need. And if there's someone that perhaps is more familiar with the library and says, I'm not old enough to be part of a senior center, that as long as they walk through the library door, the hope is that they're connected to the Aging Services Network and vice versa. That if there's someone that's connected in some way with the ASAP, Aging Services Access Point, or the Council on Aging, perhaps there's a connection to what libraries can provide. And I think that's in terms of visibility, getting the older adults, caregivers in the door, but it's also about funding. Sometimes there are funding sources that are available just to senior centers, but if you collaborate, then they could benefit your library as well. And there's a lot that, you can do together. So, this is just a few of the benefits that we saw. And then this is an example of, we had a recent American Rescue Plan Act grant, actually two of them that were funding councils on aging, one to do digital literacy for older adults and one to do hybrid programming. Both grant programs wound up, the result was a lot of COAs partnered with the library in the community. And this was one of the really great examples where the Athol COA partnered with the Athol Public Library and did all sorts of things with not even the biggest grant award, but you can see they lent out hotspots for those that didn't have access to reliable internet. They did one-on-one tutoring at the COA and the library. They did pop-up tutoring for those in senior housing, and then they did peer-to-peer digital literacy support. So older adults providing other older adults with this digital literacy. So it's just an example of, one way one community partnered with their Council on Aging. And then, James, do you want to talk a little bit about these two examples?
I mean, I just think these are a couple of the coolest things that I've seen in some of the work with libraries, but we've had, the Lawrence Public Library came on to a quarterly meeting we have talking about digital equity in older adults, to talk about their telehealth kiosks that they were able to install in their library, grant funded, just an opportunity for folks that may not have access to the internet for any number of reasons, but are able to still have a telehealth or a virtual visit at their public library, which is just an amazing thing to be able to have. And I know plenty of libraries do that. It doesn't take a futuristic looking kiosk. I know libraries have retrofitted other space that they have to do that kind of thing. And then this is the first I've heard of this, but the Greenfield Public Library and the laptop kind of vending machine as one of the many things that libraries lend out or loan out to folks. This is just another opportunity to connect people with digital access. And so these are ways that when we talk about what libraries can do as part of age-friendly communities, these are just a couple of the things we say just to help people think about, the more lofty possibilities, although it doesn't have to be this way, but these are just some interesting practices that we tend to talk about more. And then for anybody that's looking to redesign, rebuild, revamp their library spaces anyway, we a couple years ago came out with or supported the state in coming out with dementia-friendly design considerations. So there's all kinds of things. It's not measured or blueprinted out kind of features, but it's more things to consider in design and signage and just the way to think about just physical space design and how that can be supportive of people with cognitive issues, including people living with dementia.
And if I could just jump in with one
Yeah.
quick tidbit, which is just a lot of people think, oh, well, I don't have funding to do a major revamp of my, external structure. Or there are examples like that in the infrastructure guide that, let's say you come across thousands of dollars and want to make huge improvements. That's great. There's also small changes that you can make, like changing the signage out front, changing the color of a sign, the location, things like that, that might be, $5 or free to do and to implement to make the space more dementia friendly. So if you're looking at this going, this doesn't apply to me because I would need grant funding, not necessarily. So it is worth checking that out.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And then just lastly, this is, again, another sample of the variety of funding opportunities that we promote and we kind of repackage to raise awareness to anybody that's involved in age and dementia friendly work. Like we said, the AARP Community Challenge Grant is available right now, and that's a national opportunity, but every state gets about 4 to 5 grant awards. So encourage you to take a look at that and put an application. If we can be supportive in any way, let us know or loop you in with other partners in your general geographic area. We're happy to do that. We have some support to do that, so happy to. But I'm sure as libraries you all know about the funding opportunities that you have just in your own sector, but across all of these other sectors for arts and cultural opportunities, for digital access, for physical infrastructure improvements. These are things you can do with your local council on aging. You could do them as part of an age and dementia friendly initiative, or you can just consider how they better support access to the library for anybody, for people of all ages. So if you're interested in any of these, you can let us know that as well. Most of them are annual opportunities. A couple of them just passed, but they will come around again, and happy to work with you and connect the dots if you're interested in working with your local aging service partners.
And I will say, you might look at this and go, IT grant, I'm not doing anything in IT. There are ways to be creative in terms of how you look at the grant. So sometimes it's a little bit of a stretch what you're doing, but we can help you think sort of creatively about how to make certain funding sources fit. And then, connecting to other grantees or other communities doing the work.
Yep.
We love doing that. So.
And Allie, I don't know if we jumped to this, but these are just a few questions, but we're happy to, there's a lot that we covered, so we're happy to talk about anything in more depth or kind of open it up, and we'd love to hear from the libraries about. I mean, there's plenty going on in just the chat of people, that are Dementia Friends champions and on the social engagement task force. So happy to do this however you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, having those kind of three prompts are great too to get people thinking and talking. And so for anyone that's here, you feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, or put things in the chat. I don't know, James or Molly, if you want to put those three questions back up, just so people have those to, again, get wheels turning. A question I had asked in the chat when you were talking about dementia friendly was, I asked, how many people on here provide dementia friendly training for their staff or are considered dementia friendly champions? Because I know there's some libraries that, that is like a main part of like professional development for staff. So.
Was that question to us? How about how many?
No, it was a question for the libraries.
Okay.
I was curious if any of them wanted to share, yeah, what they're doing at their library in that respect. So, um, so now, yeah, we're getting some responses to that.
Yeah.
Like Forbes Library in Northampton, we took a terrific training focused on dementia not too long ago. Linfield is dementia friendly, and all new staff are required to go through training. Rosie, I'm not sure what library you're with, but is hosting a month-long series in June for Alzheimer's awareness and brain health, partnering with their COA. Norwood is also dementia and aging friendly, as is Quincy. Rosie, who's doing the Alzheimer's awareness, is in Westwood.
Got it. Well, thank you all for all that work that you're doing. I know some libraries are involved in memory cafes and all kinds of different things, so it's great.
Yeah,
Memory
yeah.
Cafe Social Hour. Thank you, Dedham.
I'd love to hear more from Clayton. But in the chat, I also think we could do more to support folks, and we have some current challenges for sure. So I don't know, I'm putting you on the spot, but would love to hear more.
Be careful what you ask for, Molly. Hey, good to hear. Thank you for presenting today. Yeah, I mean, one of the challenges we're dealing with, we have some specific programs. We do a lot for neurodivergent folks, and there's certainly some seniors and aging folks in that community. There's not a lot of services for neurodivergent or neurally diverse folks after they're no longer children even. So doing that for adults tends to have, as we talk about aging and the effects of aging on our bodies and how we respect people at different stages throughout life is something that we're actively doing a lot of programming around. Some of the challenges we're dealing with right now are I think the biggest one that is in all our minds is somebody who gets dropped off every day, spends all day here, and then his ride comes late, doesn't seem to be aware, he's losing awareness, and he's hanging out in the cold, or staff are staying longer than they should to provide support, and he tried to get into somebody else's car the other day and freaked him out, and the police got involved, and the person who's picking him up doesn't seem to care, and we're just like, what do we do for this situation? What kind of support do we have for this individual who's clearly aging, clearly doesn't have a good environment to go to? Talk to the Council on Aging here, and it's I know it's just a one case, but and when we have these individual tough cases, knowing where to turn to, it's not like they're coming to asking for us for help. They think they're getting all the support they need, and we're left here saying, "Ugh, we're seeing somebody literally fall through the cracks right in front of us, and we feel powerless to do anything about it." So that's when I talk about challenges. That's a very current story.
I mean, depending on how old the person is, there's plenty that Molly talked about that might be supportive. I mean, if the Council on Aging, I'd be kind of surprised if they didn't connect you or at least provide some info on something else. But if not, I mean, we can provide some info
Yeah.
as well. So
In an ideal world, if you reach out to a COA, they are going to connect you with the ASAP and all the ASAP services that I had mentioned. It's not always a perfect match. So I don't think you did anything wrong in reaching out to the COA, but
right.
maybe that person needed this age 101 training themselves. And so, it could be that, I think that probably this individual and their family would benefit from supports, whether that's options counseling or family caregiver support program, home care. Absolutely.
Part of it is a challenge of how do you provide support when people aren't like in a public library setting when people aren't looking for additional support. How do we respect privacy? How do we respect dignity? Um, kind of that line where we're not here to provide intervention and people do have free will and that's something as we're protecting the and respecting each person as an individual, it's different than the role of some of the other counselors or some of the other service agencies in town, and understanding how to help staff navigate that line. Because these are also adults that have lives and have free will. So,
Yeah.
I just want to interject. So on Monday, James and Molly came to, so NBLC and MLS hosted a gathering for library social workers. And Clayton, what you're talking about was echoed a bit. Like there's a lot of people, adults specifically, who come into our spaces, and from what staff might be observing, appear to need support in various ways, but don't want it. And what do you do when they're in your space? And we hear this from libraries all the time. If you've worked in a library, you see it. And so, yes, I just wanted to say this was a conversation that was had on Monday as well.
I just put my email in the chat. It was on a slide, but if folks want to contact me to, oh, there you go, talk through things, I'm happy to do that too. But
thank you, James. I'll also put in a plug. There's statewide, and some of the folks I know who are with us today are part of the initiative as well. Also a process that's working with AARP, and we have representatives from there. And you may have been to some of the meetings too for the Massachusetts Coalition to Combat Loneliness. And how do we make sure the libraries are part of that effort? And if people are interested in learning how they can be more involved or exploring ways, Allie and I can talk more about it, obviously. But I'm happy to talk to anybody else from the library world to figure out how we can continue working to support building more connections in our communities.
Yep. Sounds great.
Thank you for being here and for doing this today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And Molly knows I can't help myself when I see a community step up. I saw Shrewsbury hosting a Good Day Memory Cafe twice a month. I know Shrewsbury also at one point got grants to hand out the salt buckets in the wintertime. So I know that there's so many things libraries do to support people in the community. And so halfway through this, and I know I've buzzed through so many slides, but just realizing that there's a lot of regional collaboration happening. So that hopefully, if you're interested, if you want to email me to figure out what's going on in your general neighborhood, hopefully we can help with the capacity issues, or Clayton with the issues that you're talking about, because working regionally and cross-sector is very helpful for addressing issues that libraries or councils on aging or anybody aren't used to kind of encountering, or might not be in somebody's traditional wheelhouse, but it's more or less how you can help figure some things out. Not everything, but some things, and it helps applying for grants. It helps with a lot of other initiatives as well. So happy to make connections.
We love to brainstorm with you, so definitely reach out to us. And I was going to say, in terms of James, you had mentioned the Learning Collaborative. James and I also host a quarterly meeting. It's called the Tech Learning Collaborative for Healthy Aging. It's folks that are interested, whether that's they haven't started it yet or they've started it, they're interested in learning more about digital access, digital inclusion, digital equity for older adults. So it's a really great meeting. We usually have a few presenters, folks that are doing interesting work in this space. Had libraries, would love to have more. And then usually it's a great discussion. So folks are able to ask questions or, share, hey, I have this challenge. Anyone have any ideas for how to solve it? Or, hey, I have this great event coming up. Would anyone like to join? Things like that. It's really meant to be just that, a learning collaborative. And then one other thing I'll mention, we have an Aging Services Network newsletter, goes out twice a month on the 1st and the 15th. And it's basically all the funding opportunities that James and I talked about. All of those would be shared with that, along with things that are, not focused on technology. So there's all kinds of funding opportunities for organizations, including libraries in Massachusetts, and then news updates, things like that would be interesting for folks that serve older adults. So if you're interested in that, definitely let me know. And then James, you want to talk about your newsletter?
Not to be outdone.
No, James's goes out once a week, so that's even more useful.
If you can handle, I mean, I don't know, if you are really into newsletters and you can handle another one, we have one. We try to make it manageable, just 3 to 5 posts a week. And you can also go to the news section of our website if you just want to check in. But we try to post funding opportunities and a lot of the stuff that Molly talked about as well.
Yeah, and if people are interested in signing up for the newsletter, I see some or either or both of the newsletters. I can send links to it too, unless you're throwing your email in the chat right now. I subscribe to both, and they're very informative. They really are. It's especially when you're talking about aging and older populations. It's every week there's something in there like I had no idea about. So, yeah, it's definitely worth a scan.
And not to further complicate things, I also have a quarterly caregiver newsletter. So that's really just once a quarter, plus some updates on the webinar series, but at most monthly. And that's for folks that are caregivers themselves or are serving caregivers in Massachusetts. So everyone in the chat, I can add you to the Aging Services Network newsletter, but if you're also interested in the caregiver one, I can add you to that as well.
And I see folks talking about the Dementia Friends training, which is different than dementia-friendly communities. So speaking of being confusing, this is the link to Dementia Friends Massachusetts. And so Beth Stoltzberg is our partner at Jewish Family and Children's Services, but they work statewide and in multiple languages to do these trainings. And so if you're interested in any of that, there's a 2-hour champion training where then you can go off and do the 1-hour regular trainings, I guess. But all kinds of information's on there if you're interested in that.
And it's a train the trainer model, right? So once you become you get certified or the champion, like I know I've seen this in libraries, that person then can provide the training to whether it's your own staff or to other staff and colleagues, which I see is already happening in the chat. Somebody asked about it, and then another library offered to train staff, which is great. That's why we have these things.
There's training for the business community, for first responders. There's all kinds of separate offshoots of it, but if you don't want to learn how to train others, you can just do the 1-hour training yourself and be a dementia friend. But if you want to be a champion and do the training, it's a 2-hour thing. And you can see on the website, if anybody clicks on it, through this network, more than 20,000 people have gotten the training in Massachusetts, which is pretty cool. They've done a great job. So,
yeah, and I know Abby was the one who said, I can train your staff, and earlier said it's required training for all new staff that come to work at the library, which is a really great way to get people engaged with this content.
And it looks like there's an upcoming training March 11th. So I think they're always planning more.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if at the state level, is there any discussion about how to make town meeting more accessible? Because it's, in every town, this is a format. It's really an important way to be involved in town governance. Every year there's town meeting, and I think it's all towns in Massachusetts. Some towns have a town council, so it's a little different structure, but at a lot of these small towns, the only way to participate in voting for the town budget and other matters that are really important to residents is to physically come to town meeting and vote. And And I'm just wondering if there's any discussion at the state level around how to, how to make this format more accessible to people. It's really hard because the length of time is really too long for a lot of folks. Having to stand up to vote or even raise their hand to vote is a challenge. And if people aren't able to get transportation, make it to the place where the meeting's happening, they can't participate in democracy. And it's really so important. And I'm hearing elders in the community here starting to voice concerns about, whether they're going to be able to come to town meeting, and that's really important to them. And I'm just wondering if there's any kind of opening for a discussion about that.
So, I mean,
Go ahead, James.
go ahead. Well, Molly, as the state person, do you want to?
Well,
but
I was going to echo, all of the points, Kate, that you made about the importance of this. And I think that's where our desire for hybrid programming came in too, which is it shouldn't just be that those who can drive to, the town meeting can participate. What about the people that are working or providing care or homebound? They really need access to this and the ability to contribute and participate. My knowledge is that it's based on town structure and governance. I don't know that there's any sort of state oversight of that. James, do you know?
So the state extended communities being able to do hybrid public meetings. So that's a thing. But again, it depends on the capacity of your community to kind of meet that. But I know that's an ability that got extended by the state. And Clayton talked about Mass Municipal Association. One of their advocacy efforts is just making that permanent, and to just so it doesn't have to be extended all the time. Just make it be the thing. And then the Community Compact IT grant that Molly mentioned, that's been an annual opportunity where communities can get, some of the devices and hardware to actually make the capital IT improvements to actually make that happen for communities that don't have that ability. On the digital navigation side, and I know we're at 3:00, but part of what digital navigators do is, if that's the interest of an older adult in participating in local government, then that's part of, if the community has that ability, at least that's what they will teach. So civic engagement's a big part of that for the digital navigation side. So.
James and Molly, thank you so much for being here. And for everyone who's still on the call, I have a whole page of all the links that they both have shared today, and I'll find a smart way to share those out to everyone who's here today and everyone who registered. But again, thank you for your time, insight, and all of these great resources. And I'm just going to put a plug in. If you enjoyed this session, our next session that's part of this series is happening on March 11th, and it's building LGBTQIA affirming library workspaces. So please take a look at that, register if you'd like to attend. And again, Molly, James, thanks again. It's great to see you 2 times in 1 week.
Thank you.
So much,
Likewise.
Alan. Thanks everyone for having us. This is really fun.
Yep.
And great to hear more about the work you do. So reach out to us. We'd love to chat.
Thank you.
Thank you.